Life has an uncanny way of pushing us out of our comfort zones, often when we least expect it. Amelia Carter, a former therapist with a thriving career, thought she had her life figured out, a fulfilling job, a home, and a family. But when her marriage crumbled under the weight of betrayal and her career was unjustly stripped away, she found herself standing at a crossroads she never anticipated. Her only choice was to leave the bustling city behind and embark on a journey to an isolated village, guided by the hope of an unexpected inheritance. Imagine stepping off a bus in the middle of nowhere, clutching your child's hand, and staring down a dusty road that seemed to lead to uncertainty. That was Amelia's reality, a far cry from the structured, predictable life she once knew. As the bus pulled away, leaving her and her daughter, Sophia, standing alone with their suitcases, a wave of questions filled her mind. Would this village provide the fresh start they desperately needed? Or was it another twist in a tale filled with heartache? The stakes are high. A mother striving to rebuild her life for the sake of her child. An inheritance that feels more like a mystery than a gift, and a village that holds secrets she's yet to uncover. What lies ahead on that unmarked path? Will Amelia find the strength to overcome her past and create a future filled with hope and stability? Join us on this profoundly moving journey as we explore Amelia's story of resilience, rediscovery, and the extraordinary power of second chances. Don't miss what happens next. Subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications to follow every twist and turn in this unforgettable tale. Your support helps us bring stories like Amelia's to life, and we can't wait to share the rest of her inspiring journey with you. Stay tuned. The road stretched endlessly before Amelia and Sophia as they began their walk toward the village, their suitcases rolling awkwardly over the uneven dirt path. The midday sun bore down mercilessly, making every step feel heavier. Sophia's small voice broke the silence. "Mom, are we going to live here?" she asked, her big brown eyes scanning the unfamiliar surroundings. Amelia forced a smile, though doubt gnawed at her. "Yes, sweetheart. This is our fresh start. It might not look like much now, but every adventure begins with a little uncertainty." Sophia hesitated but nodded, trusting her mother's words. Despite her optimism, Amelia couldn't help but wonder if they were heading toward a solution or another heartbreak. Amelia's mind raced as they climbed the slight hill leading to the village. She thought about the elderly patient, Ethan Blake, whose generosity had brought her here. His stories of the house and the quiet town had sounded idyllic at the time, like a retreat from the chaos of city life. Now, staring at the unfamiliar horizon, she wondered if she had been too naive. The sound of a rumbling engine startled them both. A cloud of dust billowed as an old yellow taxi appeared from around the bend. The driver, a rugged man in his early 30s, stopped beside them. "You must be Amelia and Sophia," he said with a friendly smile, stepping out of the car. "I'm Daniel, the village's unofficial taxi driver. Need a lift? It's a bit of a hike from here to the village center." Grateful for the reprieve, Amelia accepted. Daniel hoisted their suitcases into the trunk with practiced ease, then held the door open for them. The ride was bumpy but short, with Daniel filling the silence by sharing snippets about the village. "It's small, but the people are good. We've got a medical station, though it's more like a one-person operation. Dr. Thomas has been running it for decades, but is unhealthy now." Amelia listened intently, her therapist instincts kicking in. It wasn't just a village Daniel described. It was a community on the edge of survival, held together by people who refused to give up. When the taxi finally stopped, Amelia stared at a quaint, two-story house with a weathered charm. The red cross painted on the gate indicated its dual purpose, half a home, half a medical station. Her stomach sank. "This can't be right," she murmured. "I thought we were inheriting a house, not this." Daniel shrugged apologetically. "That's the address. It's not much, but the doctor might know more about the arrangement." "He's inside." Amelia stepped out of the car with a deep breath, her daughter trailing close behind. The door creaked open, revealing a nurse in her early 30s, her expression as sharp as her starched uniform. "You must be the new arrivals," the nurse said curtly. "I'm Claire. Follow me." Amelia hesitated but followed, dragging their luggage behind her. The interior of the house was functional but sparse. Dr. Thomas, An older man with a kind but weary face greeted them warmly from a chair in the corner. "Welcome," he said, his voice trembling but genuine. "It's good to meet you finally. Ethan spoke highly of you, Amelia. He trusted you to make the best of this place." Amelia offered a small smile, still unsure of what to say. After settling Sophia in a small room upstairs, Amelia returned to the living room to speak with Dr. Thomas. The nurse, Claire, busied herself in the adjoining medical station, her disapproving glances reminding Amelia of how unwelcome she felt. "I'm grateful for Ethan's kindness," Amelia began cautiously, "but I didn't expect the house to come with responsibilities." Dr. Thomas chuckled softly. "It's not just a house, Amelia. It's a lifeline for this village. Ethan knew that. He wanted you to be part of something bigger than yourself. I'm retiring soon, and we need someone to step in. Not just to live here, but to help keep this community alive." The weight of his words settled on Amelia. Her instinct screamed to retreat, to find another way to rebuild her life that didn't involve this overwhelming responsibility. Yet, she couldn't ignore the sincerity in his voice or the quiet determination in the eyes of the people around her. The next few days were a blur of adjustments. Amelia explored the village, meeting the locals and listening to their stories. She quickly realized how integral the medical station was to their lives. It was a beacon of hope in an otherwise underserved area, from administering vaccinations to treating minor injuries. Meanwhile, Sophia adapted surprisingly well, making friends with the other children and exploring the countryside. Her laughter, which had been absent for months, began to return. Amelia's initial reluctance began to soften. She spent more time in the medical station, observing Dr. Thomas, and occasionally assisting with small tasks. Her background as a therapist proved helpful, as villagers opened up to her in ways she hadn't expected. Claire, however, remained cold and distant. Her resentment toward Amelia was palpable, but Amelia chose to rise above it, focusing instead on her daughter and her growing sense of purpose. Late one evening, as Amelia sat by the window, watching the stars, Daniel's taxi pulled up outside. He stepped out with a bag of supplies and knocked gently on the door. "Thought you might need these," he said, handing her a box of groceries and a small bouquet of wildflowers. Amelia's breath caught. It had been a long time since anyone had shown her such kindness. "Thank you," she said softly. "You're doing good work here," Daniel replied. "Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise. This village needs you." As he drove away, Amelia realized that perhaps she needed the village just as much as it needed her. As the weeks went by, Amelia found herself slowly settling into life in the village. Each day brought new challenges and discoveries, yet she couldn't shake the shadow of her past. Memories of her ex-husband, Logan, and their failed marriage surfaced at the most inconvenient times, triggered by a familiar gesture, a turn of phrase, or the sight of a father playing with his child. Logan's betrayal had left scars more profound than she liked to admit. His relentless ambition and infidelity had eroded her trust in people, making it challenging to accept kindness without suspicion. The sight of Daniel's taxi pulling into the driveway one afternoon stirred a mixture of gratitude and unease. "Delivery," Daniel called out, lifting a crate of fresh vegetables from the trunk. "Compliments of the local farmer. He said you're doing good work with Dr. Thomas." Amelia forced a smile, accepting the crate. "Thank you. It's unexpected." Daniel leaned casually against the car, studying her face. "You don't have to carry it all alone." She hesitated, unsure how to respond. "I've learned not to expect help," she admitted finally. "It's easier that way." Daniel frowned. "Sometimes people surprise you. Not everyone's out to take something from you, Amelia." His words lingered long after he drove away, forcing her to confront a truth she had avoided for years. She had built walls so high that even genuine kindness felt like an intrusion. That evening, as Amelia sat in the small living room, sorting through medical records left by Dr. Thomas, Sophia bounded into the room holding a bouquet of wildflowers. "Mom, look what Daniel helped me pick," she exclaimed, her face glowing with excitement. Amelia froze. "Daniel? He said you deserve flowers because you're working so hard," Sophia said, placing the bouquet on the table. "Isn't that sweet?" Amelia felt her defenses crack just a little. Perhaps Daniel was right. Maybe it was time to let go of her past and start trusting again. Life in the village had a rhythm, and Amelia was swept up in its current. She spent her mornings assisting Dr. Thomas at the medical station, her afternoons organizing supplies, and her evenings listening to Sophia's stories about her adventures with the other children. The simplicity of village life was both a balm and a challenge, forcing Amelia to confront the parts of herself she had buried under years of professional detachment and emotional survival. One afternoon, a commotion outside drew her attention. Claire's sharp voice cut through the quiet, followed by Daniel's measured tone. Amelia entered the porch to find Claire and Daniel in a heated argument. "You have no business interfering," Claire snapped, her face flushed with anger. "I'm not interfering," Daniel replied calmly. "I'm helping Amelia settle in, which is more than I can say for you." Claire turned on Amelia. "Do you even know what you're doing here? This village doesn't need someone like you swooping in and pretending to care." The accusation stung, but Amelia held her ground. "I'm not pretending, Claire. I'm here because this is the only place that gave me a chance when I needed it most. I didn't ask for your approval, and I don't need it." Claire's face twisted with frustration before she stormed off, leaving Amelia and Daniel alone. "She's been like that since she broke things off with me," Daniel sighed. "It's not about you. It's about her regrets." Amelia nodded, though her heart was still pounding. "I just want to do the right thing," she said softly. "You are," Daniel assured her. "Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." The encounter left Amelia shaken but resolute. She couldn't afford to let Claire's bitterness derail her progress. The villagers depended on the medical station, and Amelia felt part of something meaningful for the first time in years. That night, as Amelia lay awake, staring at the ceiling, she thought about Daniel's unwavering support and Dr. Thomas's quiet wisdom. Slowly, she began to see the possibilities ahead for herself and Sophia. With all its quirks and challenges, the village had become a place where they could finally start healing. The journey was far from over, but for the first time in a long time, Amelia felt hope stirring in her heart. Amelia stepped outside with a steaming cup of coffee. As the sun rose over the hills, the village was waking up. Roosters crowded in the distance, and the scent of fresh bread wafted through the air from a nearby bakery. It was a scene she never imagined herself being a part of, yet here she was, feeling more grounded than she had in years. Sophia ran out to join her, her face bright with excitement. "Mom, Mrs. Lila invited us to her farm today. She said we can pick strawberries." Amelia smiled at her daughter's enthusiasm. "That sounds like fun. But first, I need to check on Dr. Thomas. We'll go right after, okay?" Sophia nodded eagerly, skipping back into the house to pack a basket. At the medical station, Amelia found Dr. Thomas poring over patient files. Though he had recovered somewhat, his frailty was apparent, and Amelia worried about the toll the work was taking on him. "You should rest," she said gently, touching his shoulder. He looked up with a tired smile. "This village has been my life, Amelia. It's hard to let go." Amelia nodded, understanding the weight of his words. "I know, but you've done so much already. Let me carry some of that burden." Dr. Thomas hesitated, then leaned back in his chair. "You've been a blessing to this place, Amelia. I didn't think anyone could fill the shoes Ethan left behind, but you've proven me wrong." His words filled Amelia with a quiet sense of pride. For the first time, she felt she was living up to the legacy Vincent Blake had entrusted to her. Later that day, Amelia and Sophia went to Mrs. Lila's farm. The sprawling fields, dotted with rows of strawberries, were a sight. Other villagers were also there, chatting and laughing as they picked fruit. "Amelia," Mrs. Lila called out, waving her over. "It's good to see you. The village hasn't felt this alive in years." Amelia joined her, feeling a warmth she hadn't experienced in a long time. As she worked alongside the villagers, listening to their stories and laughter, she realized something profound. This wasn't just a fresh start, it was a home. As Amelia and Sophia returned home that evening, a letter awaited on the porch. The sight of it sent a chill down Amelia's spine. It was from Logan. "Mom, what's wrong?" Sophia asked, noticing her mother's expression. Amelia forced a smile. Nothing, sweetheart. Go wash up for dinner. Once Sophia was out of sight, Amelia opened the envelope tremblingly. Inside was a neatly typed letter laced with Logan's characteristic arrogance. Amelia, I've heard you've relocated. Considering how hard you fought to stay in the city, it is an exciting choice. I hope you're not filling our daughter's head with nonsense about me. We need to discuss custody. Call me. Her hands clenched the paper tightly. Custody? Logan had shown little interest in Sophia when they were married. Why now? Was it guilt or something more sinister? The thought of Logan trying to re-enter their lives filled her with dread. But as she looked around the cozy living room, filled with Sophia's drawings and the scent of freshly baked bread, Amelia knew she wouldn't let him disrupt their peace. The following day, Amelia shared the letter with Daniel. His jaw tightened as he read it. He doesn't have the right to uproot Sophia's life, he said firmly. Amelia sighed. Logan doesn't see rights or wrongs. He sees opportunities. He'll try if he thinks he can control me through Sophie. Daniel's eyes softened. You're stronger than you give yourself credit for, Amelia. You've built a life here, one worth fighting for. And you're not alone in this. His words bolstered her resolve. She had fought battles alone for years, but realized she didn't have to. Over the next few days, Amelia sought advice from Dr. Thomas and the village's chairman, Mr. Holland. Both reassured her that she had a strong custody case, given Logan's neglectful history. Blissfully unaware of the turmoil, Sophia continued to thrive in the village. Her laughter was a reminder of what Amelia was fighting for. One afternoon, as Amelia and Daniel walked along the river, she confessed her fears. What if he wins? What if he takes her away? Daniel stopped and turned to face her. Then we'll fight. You're not the same person you were in the city, Amelia. You've grown stronger and have an entire village behind you now. His unwavering support brought tears to her eyes. For the first time in years, she felt indeed seen, not as a victim, but as someone capable of overcoming even the darkest shadows of her past. The calm of village life was disrupted one crisp autumn morning when Amelia received a call from her lawyer in the city. Logan had officially filed for joint custody of Sophia, citing a desire to reconnect with his daughter. He doesn't care about her, Amelia said into the phone, pacing the small living room. He's doing this to spite me. Her lawyer's voice was calm but firm. That may be true, Amelia, but he's presenting himself as a changed man. He's claiming financial stability, a supportive environment, and what? Amelia snapped, gripping the phone tighter. That your relocation to the village is unsuitable for Sophia's growth. He's arguing that the village lacks proper education and opportunities. Amelia's breath caught in her throat. Logan's manipulations never ceased to amaze her. He had barely acknowledged Sophia during their marriage, and now he was trying to uproot her life. I'll fight him, she said with quiet determination. Her lawyer hesitated. It won't be easy. He has connections, but you have a strong case. Keep gathering evidence that Sophia is thriving. Document her school activities, relationships here. Anything that shows she's happy and well-adjusted. When the call ended, Amelia sank onto the couch, overwhelmed. She had worked hard to build a life for herself and Sophia in the village, and now Logan threatened to unravel it all. That evening, as Amelia walked to the medical station to clear her thoughts, she found Daniel waiting by the gate. His presence, solid and reassuring, was precisely what she needed. You okay? He asked, his voice low and concerned. No, she admitted. Logan's filed for custody. He's saying the village isn't good enough for Sophia. Daniel's jaw tightened. That's absurd. She's thriving here. Everyone can see it. Amelia nodded, her throat tight. But what if the court doesn't see it that way? What if I lose her? You won't, Daniel said firmly. We won't let that happen. Amelia looked up at him, tears brimming in her eyes. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, she wouldn't have to face this fight alone. Word of Logan's custody claim spread quickly through the village, and to Amelia's surprise, the community rallied around her. Mrs. Lila, the farmer, offered to testify about Sophia's involvement in local activities. The schoolteacher provided glowing reports about Sophia's academic progress and social development. Even the village chairman, Mr. Holland, offered to write a statement about Amelia's contributions to the community. "She's one of us now," Mr. Holland said firmly. "If the court can't see that, we'll make them." Amelia was overwhelmed by their support. For years, she had felt invisible, her struggles unnoticed and unacknowledged. But here, in this tiny village, she was seen and valued. One afternoon, as Amelia helped Dr. Thomas organize supplies at the medical station, he paused and looked at her thoughtfully. "You know, Amelia, you remind me of Ethan," he said. Amelia blinked. "Ethan? How so?" "He had this way of seeing the best in people, even when they couldn't see it themselves. He believed in this village, in its potential. And now, I see that same belief in you." The words filled Amelia with a quiet strength. Ethan's faith in her had brought her here, and she wouldn't let his legacy go to waste. As the court date approached, Amelia worked tirelessly to prepare. She documented every aspect of Sophia's life in the village, her friendships, education, and involvement in community events. Daniel, ever the steady presence, helped her organize the evidence, staying late into the night to offer encouragement and support. On the eve of the hearing, Amelia sat with Sophia on the porch, watching the stars. "Mom," Sophia said softly, "why does Dad want me to leave?" Amelia hesitated, unsure how to answer. "Your dad thinks he's doing the right thing. But you know what? I think we've found the right place for us, right?" Sophia nodded. "I like it here. I like my friends, and the school, and the farm. And I like Daniel." Amelia smiled, her heart swelling with love for her daughter. "I like him too." The following day, as Amelia prepared to leave for the city, the village gathered to see her off. Mrs. Lila handed her a basket of baked goods for the journey. The schoolteacher hugged Sophia tightly, promising to keep her seat warm. And Daniel, standing quietly at the edge of the crowd, gave Amelia a look that spoke volumes. "You've got this," he said simply. Amelia nodded, taking strength from his words. She was no longer the timid woman who had desperately fled the city. She was Amelia Carter, a mother, a healer, and a fighter, and she was ready to face whatever came next. The courtroom was imposing, its high ceilings and echoing halls designed to intimidate. Amelia stood outside, clutching Sophia's hand tightly. Her lawyer, a seasoned woman named Linda Morris, gave her a reassuring nod. "Remember, Amelia," Linda said firmly, "we're not just defending your decision to live in the village. We're showing the court that you've created a nurturing, supportive environment for Sophia." Amelia took a deep breath and stepped inside. Across the room, Logan sat with his lawyer, exuding an air of confidence that made Amelia's stomach churn. He didn't even glance at her, instead focusing on a folder of documents in front of him. The proceedings began, and Logan's lawyer wasted no time painting a bleak picture of village life. "Your Honor," he began, "my client's concern is solely for his daughter's future. The village where Ms. Carter has chosen to reside lacks adequate resources, educational opportunities, and healthcare facilities. It is not a suitable environment for a child with such great potential." Amelia's lawyer rose in response. "Your Honor, we will prove that Sophia Carter thrives in her current environment. Not only is she excelling academically, but she is also surrounded by a supportive community that prioritizes her well-being." One by one, Amelia's witnesses were called. The village schoolteacher spoke passionately about Sophia's academic achievements, emphasizing her curiosity and creativity. Mrs. Lila described Sophia's involvement in community events, highlighting her happiness and social skills. Finally, Daniel took the stand. "Daniel," Linda began, "you've known Ms. Carter and her daughter for several months. Can you tell the court what you've observed about their life in the village?" Daniel nodded. "Amelia has worked tirelessly to create Sophia's stable, loving home. She's become an integral part of our community, and Sophia is thriving in ways I don't think she could in the city. The village may not have skyscrapers or fancy schools, but it has a heart, and that's what a child needs most." Logan's lawyer attempted to discredit Daniel, questioning his relationship with Amelia. But Daniel's calm, measured responses left little room for doubt about his sincerity. When it was Amelia's turn to speak, she poured her heart out. "I moved to the village to give my daughter a life where she felt safe and loved. She's not just a name on a school roster or a face in a crowd here. She's part of something bigger. And so am I. This community has given us a sense of belonging that we never had before. Her voice wavered, but she stood, looking directly at the judge. Logan has resources and connections, but raising a child is about more than money. It's about being there. It's about love. And that's what Sophia has with me. The wait for the judge's decision was excruciating. Amelia sat in the courthouse hallway, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Daniel sat beside her, his quiet presence a source of comfort. "Whatever happens, you've done everything you could," he said softly. Amelia nodded, though her chest felt like it was about to collapse under the weight of her anxiety. Finally, they were called back into the courtroom. The judge, a stern-looking woman with sharp eyes, took her seat and cleared her throat. After reviewing the evidence and testimony presented, it is clear to this court that Sophia Carter is thriving under the care of her mother. While Mr. Carter has demonstrated a renewed interest in his daughter's well-being, his past neglect cannot be overlooked. Additionally, the community support and educational opportunities available in the village are sufficient to meet Sophia's needs. Amelia held her breath as the judge continued. "It is the ruling of this court that primary custody will remain with Miss Carter. Mr. Carter will be granted supervised visitation, contingent upon his consistent involvement and positive behavior." Relief washed over Amelia like a wave. She barely registered the rest of the judge's words, focusing entirely on the fact that Sophia would remain with her. As the courtroom emptied, Logan approached her. His expression was a mix of frustration and something that almost resembled regret. "This isn't over, Amelia," he said, his voice low. She met his gaze evenly. "No, Logan. It is. You'll have your chance to be a part of Sophia's life, but you won't control ours anymore." He said nothing, turning sharply and walking away. Back in the village, Amelia was met with cheers and hugs from the townspeople who had gathered to hear the news. Sophia was swept up in a sea of smiling faces, her laughter ringing like music. Daniel stood slightly from the crowd, watching Amelia with a quiet smile. When their eyes met, she walked over to him, her heart full. "Thank you," she said simply. "For what?" he asked, his voice soft. "For everything. For believing in me. For being there." Daniel hesitated, then reached out and took her hand. "You're stronger than you think, Amelia. But I'm glad I could help." As the sun set over the village, casting a golden glow over the fields and hills, Amelia felt a peace she hadn't known in years. The fight for Sophia had been hard, but it had shown her how far she'd come, and how much more she had to look forward to. The weeks following the court's decision brought a sense of stability to Amelia's life that she hadn't felt in years. The village seemed brighter, the air fresher, and every little interaction carried the warmth of a community united by shared triumphs and struggles. Sophia returned to her routine, happily attending school and spending afternoons helping Mrs. Lila on the farm. One evening, as they walked home hand in hand, she asked a question that caught Amelia off guard. "Mom, do you think Dad will ever really care about me?" Amelia paused, crouching down to meet Sophia's gaze. "Your dad cares about you in his way, sweetheart. But what matters most is that you're surrounded by people who love you daily. And I'll always be here for you." Sophia nodded thoughtfully, seeming to accept the answer. Meanwhile, Amelia found herself growing closer to Daniel. Their shared experiences and long conversations had created a bond that felt natural and unforced. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the stars, Daniel turned to her with a look of quiet determination. "Amelia," he began, "I know life's thrown you a lot of curveballs, and I know you're used to standing on your own, but I want you to know you don't have to anymore. Not if you don't want to." Amelia's heart swelled. She had equated vulnerability with weakness for so long, but Daniel's steady presence had taught her that leaning on someone didn't mean losing herself. "I think I've been waiting for someone like you," she admitted softly. Daniel smiled, his hand finding hers. "And I've been waiting for you, Amelia." A.R. Thomas officially announced his retirement at the medical station, passing the torch to Amelia with a heartfelt speech at a small gathering in the town square. "This village has always needed someone with a heart as big as Amelia's," Dr. Thomas said, his voice trembling with emotion. I couldn't have asked for a better successor. The villagers cheered, their faith in Amelia evident in every smile and word of encouragement. Even Claire, who had softened over time, approached her afterward with a quiet apology. I was wrong about you, Claire admitted. You've done more for this village in a few months than I ever could. Thank you. Amelia accepted her words gracefully, and the last vestiges of doubt about her place in the village finally dissolved. One sunny afternoon, as Amelia and Daniel sat on a blanket by the river with Sophia, she reflected on the journey that had brought her here. The grief, the betrayal, the uncertainty, all of it had led to this moment of quiet joy. Mom, look, Sophia called, holding up a cluster of wildflowers she had gathered. I made a bouquet for you and Daniel. Amelia laughed, her heart full as she accepted the flowers. It's beautiful, sweetheart. Thank you. Sophia beamed, then ran off to chase butterflies along the riverbank. Daniel turned to Amelia, his expression serious. You know, I've been thinking. About us. About the future. Amelia's breath caught, but she said nothing, letting him continue. This village has given us both a second chance. A place to heal, to grow. I want to build a life here, with you and Sophia. If that's something you'd want too. Tears welled in Amelia's eyes as she nodded. I want that more than anything. The months that followed were filled with milestones. Amelia and Daniel officially became a couple, and their love story is a source of inspiration for the village. They worked together to expand the medical station, bringing in additional resources and hosting health fairs that drew visitors from neighboring towns. Sophia thrived, her laughter and curiosity lighting up every corner of their lives. Even Logan's occasional visits became less tense as he began to show genuine interest in his daughter's happiness. On a crisp spring morning, Amelia stood on the porch of the house she once viewed with uncertainty. It was no longer just a house, it was a home. The air was filled with the scent of blooming flowers, and Sophia's laughter echoed from the garden. Daniel joined her, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. You've built something amazing here, Amelia. Ethan would be proud. Amelia smiled, her gaze sweeping over the village. It's not just me. It's everyone. The villagers, Dr. Thomas, and you. This place saved me as much as I've tried to save it. Daniel kissed her forehead. And it's only the beginning. As they stood there, surrounded by the beauty and peace of their new life, Amelia realized she had finally found what she had been searching for. A sense of belonging, a purpose, and a love that felt as enduring as the hills around them. Years later, the village would remember Amelia as the woman who brought hope and renewal to their small community. The medical station became a model for rural healthcare, and the stories of Amelia, Sophia, and Daniel inspired others to believe in the power of second chances. Amelia's journey from heartbreak to healing was not just her own. It was a testament to the strength of the human spirit and the magic that happens when people come together to lift each other. And in the heart of the village, her story would live on, a legacy of love, resilience, and the unshakable bond of family.